Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about what?
Fractions.
Fractions. You want to say anything else?
Yep.
What?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Okay. Okay, go take a seat. So today, we're going to talk about fractions and get a little bit of a feel for how fractions work. And I don't really have a specific plan. We're just going to kind of talk about different aspects of fractions until we get tired, and then we'll take a break. So first I'll write it down. Fractions.
But you might want to erase that at some point so that you have more point.
Yeah, at some point I'll erase it, but it'll be here in the beginning so people know what we're talking about. So let's start with maybe the basics and then build our way up from there. So I'll start with a picture. Here's a circle, and I can cut this circle in half and think about just this half of the circle, right?
Like half of a pie.
Like half of a pie or half of a pizza, right? And this is our first example of a fraction. This is called half, and you write it like this. So you write a fraction with two numbers, a number on top, a number on the bottom, and a flat line in between them. Okay?
But what I want to say is that can be little small ones.
Uh-huh.
Like one there. Like it can be four things.
What do you mean, what can be four things?
Like you can
Okay, well, if you're talking about quarters?
no.
Okay, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about if you cut quarters and then you cut quarters of the quarters.
Right, so it could be into 8. So I think you're getting ahead of us. So let's start with the basics and then build our way up, okay? So this is a half, and it's easily seen to be half of a circle. But the reason we write it like this is it's like 1 out of 2. We've taken the whole circle and we've divided it into how many pieces? How many pieces? 2 pieces. And that's what this 2 represents, 2 pieces. And this 1 on the top says we're just looking at one of those 2 pieces, and that's why it's half. You want to say something?
I wanted to say exactly what you're going to say. But then, like you said, it's all
Okay, so why don't you do it for the next one? Because I could also draw a circle, and I could divide it into 4 pieces, which is a little bit closer to what Dina was talking about. And I could take one of these pieces, and how much is this?
It can be 2.
No, how much is this? The part that I've actually colored in.
Can I answer?
Sure.
A quarter.
Yeah, a quarter. And the way that you write a quarter is almost the same way you write a half, except there's a 4. Yeah, so why is there a 4 here? Why don't you tell me?
Because you colored in 1. So let's pretend that 1 is not there. There's only 3. And if we add that, it makes 4. So that's why the 4 is there.
Okay, so you're counting the 3 pieces that we didn't color in, plus the 1 extra piece that we did color in, right? Yeah, you're exactly right. That's where 4 comes from. There's 4 pieces in total. If you forget about hold on. Let me say my sentences, okay? There's 4 pieces in total if you don't think about what was colored in. So that's what the 4 comes from. And then the fact that we colored in 1 piece, that's where the 1 on top comes from. Yes.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say the same thing that you said, but just in a different way.
Okay, well then why don't we go to the same example, so it's still quarters, but now imagine I color it in like this. How much is this?
That's the opposite of that one.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite.
1 is missing and 3 are colored in.
Yeah, exactly. So, but how much is this? How would you say this amount? Yeah?
3 quarters.
3 quarters, exactly.
Because you're counting them in quarters and it gets all the way up to 3 and 1 is not.
So it's still quarters because it's still divided into 4 pieces.
Yeah,
but now there's
3 colored in.
Now there's 3 colored in.
So
exactly.
So the one on top is only 1 less than 4.
Yes, 3 is 1 less than 4 because 3 out of the 4 pieces are colored in. And before we move on to another example, we can actually see something that you were just saying, that these are kind of like opposites, right? Well, look what happens. What happens if I add 1/4 plus 3/4? What do I get if I add 1/4 plus 3/4? How much is that?
You get a whole.
You get a whole, exactly. So 1/4 plus 3/4 equals a whole, and a whole is just written as 1. Right?
You wrote it as a big one.
Yeah, I wrote it as a big one because it's like, it's not a fraction, so like the fractions, like the numbers are kind of smaller. But there's another way of thinking about this. So it's one way of writing it as 1, but I could also write it as a fraction. I could say, how many quarters do I have?
4.
4. So 1/4 plus 3/4.
That's how it's pictured in my brain.
Exactly. 1/4 plus 3/4 is 4 quarters. And 4 quarters, that's 4 over 4. So 4 quarters is equal to 1 whole. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So we're getting the hang of things here. Let's try some other examples. So another easy example that we want to think about is...
A famous example? Not really.
How much is this? I divided the circle into how many pieces?
3.
3 pieces. And how many of them are colored in?
1.
Okay, so how should I write this fraction down? You tell me what's on the top and what's on the bottom.
I forget, like, where the colored in one goes.
On the top.
So 1 on the top
1 on the top.
and 2. No.
The bottom is telling you how many pieces did you break the circle into? How many equal pieces? So let's count them. 1,
No.
2,
I'm gonna
3. There's going to be lots of chances to do examples, okay? So we have 2 that are not colored in, and 1 that's colored in, and so in total that's 3. And this is 1/3. Okay, now I have a question. Here's 1/2. We saw that already. We saw that before, right? What's bigger, 1/2 or 1/3? Which one's bigger? A half is bigger. And how do you know that?
Because a half is bigger because a half is like, well, that one, the third, there's only a little bit of space.
Oh, so you're kind of imagining, like, what if we made it a line down here, and you can see that a half would fill in this part, but a third doesn't get all the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I'm picturing it in my brain.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's a good way to compare them. But here's kind of a funny thing, right? Which one of these two is bigger? 2 or 3? Which one's bigger?
3.
3. And the way we write that is like this. This says 3 is bigger than 2, right? But what's funny is that even though 3 is a bigger number than 2, when I look at the way that I write fractions, this one's bigger. Half is bigger than a third, even though half has the 2 in it and the third has the 3 in it. So that's a question you might want to wonder about. How come the one with the bigger number is smaller and the one with the smaller number is bigger?
That's because you're breaking it into 2 parts, but with the 3, you're breaking it into 3 parts, and the 3 parts like make each part smaller. Like the more parts you break it into, the smaller the one of the parts gets.
Yeah, exactly right. So 3 is bigger than 2, but that means if you break something into 3 pieces, each piece has to be smaller because you're breaking it into more pieces.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So this is just something that's really tricky, the fact that a third is smaller than a half, even though 3 is bigger than 2. Okay. Let's let's look at something else now. Let's think about what would happen if we took a half and we added to it a quarter. What's a half plus a quarter? Let me draw the pictures. Here's a half. And I'm going to add to that quarter. Now, how do I draw a quarter?
You draw two halves.
Like this?
Well, I was thinking that you would draw like just a line in the middle. And then I was going to say that you drew a line.
Okay, so you're saying split it in half and then split that each half into half.
And color in one.
And color in one. So this is a half and this is a quarter. So what's a half plus a quarter? What happens when I put those together? How much do I get?
I'm looking at the one that has the quarter.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay, why are you looking at that one?
Because it has the ones that I look at that are not colored in.
Oh, you're saying you're looking at this one because you can kind of picture these two as being colored in by this half? Yeah, that's exactly right. So if I were to draw that, I would say, we don't want things to be falling while we're doing the video, okay? So why don't you sit back? We could say, here's this quarter, and I'll put it in like before, and now here's this half, and that kind of like fills up these two quarters. And so how much is this? Well,
that's what I'm still trying to figure out in my head.
Okay, do you want to help? How much is this?
Like the whole thing, or just that are colored in?
The parts that are colored in, because that represents the number.
3/3.
Not thirds.
Quarters.
Yeah, quarters. So this is divided into four pieces. Hold on, this is divided into 4 pieces. That's why there's a 4 on the bottom. And 3 of them are colored in, so that's why there's a 3 on top. What were you going to ask?
What I was thinking is, I can see that it's 3/4. I want to know what the 3/4 are all smushed together.
It's just called 3/4.
I thought that because the one right behind the equal sign is a little bit smaller, so the quarters look a little bit smaller.
Yeah, but that's just an accident of how I drew it. Now I want to show you what we did a little bit with numbers, because what we did was something really interesting. We took this thing here that was half. Tina, stop moving around in the chair. Just sit still. Don't knock anything else down. We took this thing here that was half. I'm going to draw it again. So it looked like this. And we split it so that we didn't change the amount that we had, but instead of being 1/2, now it's some number of quarters. How many quarters is in this picture?
2.
2 quarters. So we learned something really interesting, which is that 1/2 and 2 quarters are actually the same thing. This is a half, and this is 2 quarters. And they're the same. Right?
Yeah, because a half can just be split into 2.
Exactly, because a half can be split into 2. So 1/2 is the same as 2 quarters. And that means that when we were trying to figure out 1/2 plus 1/4, and it seemed kind of hard, what we really did is we said, well, 1/2 is really 2 quarters. So what's 2 quarters plus 1/4? And once both things are in terms of quarters, then it's just saying, well, if you have 2 quarters and you have 1 more quarter, then that gives you 2 plus 1, which is 3 quarters.
I was going to see that by myself.
Okay, so this is a way to add fractions, even if they start off having different numbers in the bottom. By the way, the bottom number is called the denominator, and the top number is called the numerator. You don't have to memorize that right now. You'll learn that as we go along. But if they start off having different numbers on the bottom, different denominators, then one way of adding them, and a really useful way of adding them, is by making them have the same number on the bottom. And we could do that here by realizing that 1/2 is actually the same as 2 quarters. I want you to stop moving around in the chair, okay? Okay? Okay, let's try another one, maybe a little bit harder. Let's think about 1/2 plus 1/3. This one's actually a lot harder. So let's think about how we could do this. We have 1/2.
It's a half plus.
Right? Plus 1/3. Okay, but I don't want to rush to the solution. I want to try to figure out. So we're trying to figure out what is 1/2 plus 1/3. How can we figure that out? What can we do? You want to give us a hint?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't feel like saying something right now. So when I feel like it, and I think it's the right time, I do.
Okay, well, last time we tried to rewrite these fractions in different ways, right? But that's harder to do this time. I can't, if I split up 1/2 into 2/4, that doesn't really help me because then I have quarters and thirds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's a picture that I'm going to draw, which is going to help us. Here we have, this is my picture of dividing the circle into thirds, right? But imagine what happens if I divide each third in half. These are supposed to all be the same size because my circle's a little bit funny, right? How many pieces is my circle split into now? She's counting. You want to count together?
No. 5.
You're close. Let's number them. 1,
6.
2,
6.
yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so what we can do is we can think of both 1/2 and 1/3 as a certain number of sixths. So let's do it with 1/2 first.
Yeah. So if you divided it, like if you made all of those parts, split them in half one more time, it would equal 12. And if you numbered those, then it would be the same numbers as the clock.
Yeah, you're right. If I split each of these sort of pizza slices in half again, then there'd be 12 in total.
Yeah.
And then there'd kind of be 1 for each hour on the clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool point. And that would make it even harder to draw. But right now, splitting it into 6 pieces is going to be enough for us because we can ask 2 questions. We can think about 1/2 and 1/3. And let's start with 1/2. How many, if I have my circle divided into 6 pieces, how many pieces do I need to color in to get up to 1/2?
Wait, what do you mean?
Okay, here's my circle divided into 6 pieces. And how many of these pieces do I need to color in before I get exactly 1/2? Yeah?
3.
3. 1, 2, 3. Because 3/6, 3 out of 6 pieces, is the same as 1/2. Because 3 is 1/2 of 6. Does that make sense? So I'm going to just remind us, before we had 1/2 was the same thing as 2/4, and now we're saying it's also the same thing as 3/6. 1 out of 2 pieces is the same as 2 out of 4 pieces, which is the same as 3 out of 6 pieces. So 1/2 is the same as 3/6. Now what about 1/3? If I draw my circle again and I divide it into 6 pieces, how many of these pieces do I have to color in to get 1/3?
2.
Yeah, you're right, 2. How did you know that?
Because 1/2 is 3. And 1/3 is just a little bit.
A little bit less?
Yeah.
And you can also see that when we started from the circle divided into 3 pieces, to to get it into 6 pieces, can you stop jumping around? It makes too much noise. Go sit on the chair, okay? When we divided the circle from when the circle was in 3 pieces and we divided it, each of these pieces in half, then what used to be a third becomes 2 out of 6. So this is 2 out of 6. And now we can answer our question. 1/2 plus 1/3 is the same as 3 out of 6 plus 2 out of 6. And if you have 3 out of 6 and then 2 more out of 6, how many is that in total?
I don't know what to say.
If you've got 3 pieces and you're adding 2 more pieces, how many do you have?
2.
Do you know?
6. 5.
Yeah, 5. Good. You have 5 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I were to draw it, I'm dividing it into my 6 pieces. I've got 1, 2, 3, that's my half. And then 2 more, that's my third. So that tells me that 1/2 plus 1/3 is the same as 5/6. 5/6. Okay, so this is a beginning of how to think about fractions and how to add them together. Okay?
Okay.
I think you guys seem a little bit tired, so maybe this is where we
No.
should call it quits.
No.
You for sure seem tired. You guys have any last questions before we stop the video?
I would just want to do something else right now.
Okay, so no more questions?